continue to let folks join before we hear from our wonderful presenters. But if you just joined us, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. You can also use that for questions or comments throughout this webinar. And thanks for joining our Solution Spotlight highlighting Arkansas launch. I'm Jillian Schulten. I'm a partnerships manager here at Credential Engine. We have a lot of great information coming your way, and I want to be sure we have plenty of time for discussion. But first, I want to tell you just a little bit about our Solution Spotlight. And this is where we highlight CTDL solutions that empower people. So with the CTDL, it makes essential information consistent and easy to understand. It's human and machine readable, and that enables solutions that empower people to make better decisions. And Credential Engine supports the development of these solutions, and we highlight them in our Solution Spotlight. One resource that is available to you that we wanted to highlight is our Solution Spotlight webpage. You can view this webpage and you're able to learn more about all of these solutions. You can watch the previous webinar recordings, and you can also read case studies. If you have a tool that you'd like to be added on to here, please reach out and we would love to hear from you and feature it. And for our webinar series, we do have some objectives. I'm not going to go through those with you today. You can read those on your own, but I did want to highlight 2 previous webinars that we did as part of this series. And those were on the Indiana and WGU Achievement Wallets and the Tennessee Board of Regents TBR Cred, which is their comprehensive learner record. So you can check out those videos and read much more information about those solutions on our webpage that we should be putting in the chat for you if you'd like to go and check that out. And as always with this webinar series, we will follow up with the slide deck and a recording. But let us know if you have any questions after the webinar. And I know that was very quick, but I just really want to give Robert and Aaron all of the time to talk about this great tool that they've worked on. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Aaron and Robert, and I will stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Jillian. Okay, we'll share our screen real quick. Are you seeing slides?
Yes.
There we go.
Great.
All right, excellent. And we've got a lot of slides, and we'll make sure that these are available. We're going to go through them to make sure there's time for questions and answers and discussion at the end. I'm Mark McGew. I'm the Chief Data Officer for the state of Arkansas, working with the Arkansas Data Office.
And I'm Erin McCarley, Robert's Skills Data Coordinator.
Which is a job I just totally made up, but I'm glad I did.
I am too.
And we're here today to talk about Arkansas Launch, which is a skills-based ecosystem that we're building in Arkansas with participation from a lot of people I see in the chat. So we didn't start with a platform, we started with a strategy. Our governor started the governor's workforce cabinet, made a new chief workforce officer. We did a lot of work over 18 months to come up with the workforce strategy. There's a link there, but it was really about breaking down silos, moving from program-centric to person-centric and persona-centric, really refactoring the way we look at the world from individual programs to job seeker, to employer, to student. And so our vision of what we wanted to build towards was to make sure that any Arkansan could very easily find and apply services, to make sure employers could very easily find and retain talent. Job seekers could find employment, career exploration resources, training, other opportunities, as well as training education. We've got a number of initiatives to kind of get us from current state, or where we were at that time in 2023, to our envisioned future state. But some of the key ones are talent pipeline management, the Arkansas Credential Registry, which is with Credential Engine, and really just publishing everything out as linked open data and credentials and CTDL. Everything we do goes into CTDL. We're very passionate about not building a bigger Arkansas-shaped silo, but by publishing the Credential Registry first, and then any tools we build, we'll kind of pull off of that. Launch, which we'll talk about a lot, is this growing skills-based ecosystem, which is really where our residents, our employers, our providers all kind of interface with the data. which beneath the covers is spread across lots of different places and systems, and Civiform, which is kind of beyond the scope of today's conversation, which is how they can connect to the various wraparound services and programs. Launch is not really a platform. We really think of it more as an ecosystem. It's a brand. There's a lot of pieces. Some of them very public facing, and some of them are a little bit more behind the scenes. But they're absolutely the magic that makes everything happen, including the credential registry and everything we're doing with CTDL or LARs or some of the other underlying data. We started out by really having a user-centered design process. We did a big design thinking workshop. Some of the people in the chat were actually in the design thinking workshop because we brought together cabinet secretaries, legislators, some of the experts from around the country that we were working with, to look at personas and kind of really understand from job seekers, from program participants, from employers, from providers, what were their pain points, so we could sort of design for that and kind of really think at it from a process perspective, so we could try to come up with an ecosystem that connected everyone together. We don't have it in here, but some people have seen the subway map that we put together of how all these different things connect, because none of them really work that well on their own. Here it's all designed to work together as an ecosystem. There were also a lot of data problems or opportunities for improvement, where the data that we had was sometimes didn't have the grain or the interoperability or the timeliness for today's needs and our evolving needs of the future. So we had before we could even really empower people with better digital tools, we kind of had to work back to doing a lot of credential publishing, but was just publishing it. There's a ton of work that goes into that. I think they worked for 6 months just on the CTE pathways, but that is driving data quality improvements on the ground, even in our interoperable systems. And for interoperability, which Tina Moore, who's on this call, got me this lovely water bottle that says interoperable because that's my favorite word. Our chief workforce officer says we want a common language of skills, because everything with SIPs and SOCs are really trying to drill down to the underlying skills and competencies that can translate skill attainment and articulation wherever that is attained, and then doing job postings and things like that in the same way. We came up with a number of different personas based on a role of people. Here's just an example, but in our design thinking workshops, we intentionally had a very broad variety of these because we really wanted to develop the launch ecosystem to kind of meet the needs of the most varied populations up to incumbent workers who were just looking for upskilling within their current employer and everything in between. We really had to unlearn the way things had always been done. Governor Sanders started the first workforce cabinet with, I don't want to hear this is how we've always done things. No more silos, all options on the table. So it's really been trying to rethink things. We're a big fan of the new data paradigm work that came out from the Chamber of Commerce Foundation. That's very much where our head's at. So we put a link to that there in the download. And we're happy to share today where we're at, but this is very much a work in progress. And this is what we say when we're showing it to people in the state. Yesterday, we had a lithium summit because we got a lithium ecosystem in Arkansas, and I made sure to tell people, this is where it's at today. It's better than what we had yesterday, but this is very much by Arkansans for Arkansans. So it's very much a speak now for your piece kind of moment. We want to tap everyone's collective wisdom. We want to hear ideas. We want to kind of come together and build it together. And with this wonderful national community, we want to make sure that, we didn't start from scratch. We built on work in New Jersey and Colorado and Hawaii and Rhode Island and others. And we've learned from like half the people in the chat, I think, and tried to apply that, because I think we're all building in the same direction and we don't want to do 50 plus versions of the same thing. So we're going to share our work in progress today, but we love hearing new ideas, how we can make it better. And we're very anxious to share anything we learn, do, or develop. where we're at today, this sort of phase one. We have released launch for job seekers and launch for employers, which speak for themselves what those do. We're very excited about, we have just kind of put out launch for students. It is in 109 schools right now, which is about a third of our school districts. There's about 60,000 public high school students. And we've been very busy publishing out to the credential registry, largely at the provider and credential level. Some are all the way down, deep publishing, down to competencies, and Aaron will talk a lot more about that. Right now we're in phase two. We're really further building out skills data in the registry, trying to get to courses and things like that. Further building out our wallet. Launch does currently have some support for some wallets, and really kind of like building in a native web wallet inside of it, and really working on what we can do to publish as a state to take friction out of the process of using verified digital credentials. Doing kind of mass issuance of verified digital credentials. We think a lot about the high school class of 2026. The Arkansas Department of Education was very kind of intentional about thinking about with student success plans. They need to move between districts, but also they need to move with the learner beyond high school. So we think that's a great way in high school for a learner to get comfortable with, like skills-based practices, get comfortable with having LERs, using LERs, things like that. And we want to make sure that with the class of 2026, those data move with them into the evolving world of learning and work and wherever their future takes them. Over the summer, we'll kind of expand out launch for students to all the school districts. We're working to integrate, the wraparound services in Civiform, and demonstrating interstate operability. Again, not building a bigger silo. This is where we all want to ideally all work together to speak a common language. We do have a phase 3 coming up, where we're continuing to add on. We always have a multi-year roadmap. Our stakeholders increasingly keep us busy with a wealth of new ideas. I'm not going to read this eye chart to you, but there's a lot more information there for anyone who wants to look at later, with just where we're at and where we're going. And we love any new ideas and learning from what's working well in other places. We're kind of in the upper there. We're the shared administrative services department. So we kind of serve everyone with things that don't fit neatly within one department. But the governor's workforce cabinet alone is human services, which has SNAP, ENT, and Medicaid, which has a new work requirement and lots of other things like that. Commerce, which is where our WIOA, unemployment insurance, apprenticeships lie. The state military department, which has been very involved. The health department, where we're kind of getting launch built into some of the healthcare intercepts. Education, which is primary, secondary, post-secondary, career technical education. Veterans affairs, corrections. Launch is being used as part of our reentry efforts. And then we're had recent legislation for a recidivism reduction system. So we're really trying to think through from intake, using some of the same things that we use in launch for students with career exploration, getting like prison work experience, articulating that as skills, helping an individual learn and communicate and connect with opportunity based on the skills they have attained through prison education programs, prison work experience, things like that. And labor and licensing, which does all of our occupational licensure. We certainly couldn't do this just with those in the States. We've got I'm sure we've left someone out because it's just so many. We have a ton of wonderful partners and supporters. And we're not going to read through the whole list, but we are working with a lot of different entities, because it really takes a village to kind of like rethink this new paradigm and build it. There's a lot more nerdy data stuff to go through, but a key thing that's helping here is this sort of hub and spoke design, where another abstraction layer, we have something called the Arkansas Data Hub, which is the fabric. So we've got all these state administrative data systems, and that's helping this sort of like real-time sharing of data. And that's where we're kind of getting that pivot from the high school or the school data alone. We have almost 300 school districts. Each one of those has a database. There's only one launch for students. So wherever you are in the state, that's kind of presenting those 300 different school districts just as one place. And on the job seeker side, we've front-ended the unemployment insurance system and launch. So we're really trying to say, hey, if you're a resident, you're doing job seeking things, we want you to just come to one place in common plain language. And that's kind of where we connect to LERs, where we'll connect to learning management systems and things like that. And Erin's gonna talk a little bit about
Right, so now it's my turn. During phase 2, which we're just now entering with our launch development, we're really going to be getting into the skills piece of launch, which is, we think of it as the connective tissue or the language that's going to connect individual learning work experiences to all the opportunities that launch has to offer, whether it's employment, enlistment, or further education and training opportunities, and allow for personalized recommendations for individual learners and workers. So here, identifying skill, we're thinking of it very broadly: competency, knowledge, skill, ability, attitude, habit of mind, also any kind of performance-based standard, objective, or outcome. So that's tying us into accreditation frameworks that may have standards or learning outcomes. We can go ahead and move forward. As we are thinking about building out a skills taxonomy for the state so that we have a common language that educational training providers and employers are using, as well as your average individual worker and learner. We're thinking a lot about what that looks like and how to structure not only the data, but also syntactically what a skills statement looks like. So this just kind of walks you through a little bit of the linguistic exercises, but coming down to the measurable action, the measurable action verb, and then allowing later on for more context for proficiency level and for other metadata that will be attached to those skill statements. And since this is a Credential Engine solution spotlight, Robert mentioned that launch functions more like an ecosystem or a brand that pulls a lot of different tools together. And very central to making everything work is the credential registry and CTDL. The reason why that's so important for launch is because CTDL is what is going to make us interoperable and able to speak to other systems across the United States and even the globe. So CTDL with Credential Engine provides us with an interoperable coding schema and ways to structure our data so that we can use them for a variety of purposes. So we can bring in our standards, we can put in the skills data around a stub or just the organization program, high level program data, and make it work for us, linking data across our system and others.
And Erin mentioned stub. A stub record is, even if we don't have all the details yet, we put it in there because as we're getting the foundation laid for LERs, maybe we've got the LER record. We don't have the full CTDL description yet. We want a CTID and then LER so that, they can go in either order, but we can build out that context because I think that's what can drill that LER record down to skills.
So with launch, as we're thinking about the functionality of having a learning employment record or comprehensive learning record, we're thinking about verified digital credentials that again have all the metadata through CTDL wrapped around it. So all of the skills associated with a credential, the issuing organization, cost, time to completion, enrollment requirements, et cetera, et cetera. And having all of that data will allow us to make the rich connections across the network and to make very individualized recommendations for upskilling, for employment opportunities, allowing employers to come in and identify talent in the state that they might otherwise not be able to see, and then trust through our verified credentials that they're not dealing with AI, which we know right now is a huge problem with applicant tracking systems getting clogged with lots of robo resumes and AI enhanced experiences and skills.
We can give our completers a chance to cut through the noise.
Yeah. So here again, just another schema of what our architecture looks like, with credential registry being right in the middle of everything and enabling all of the connections that launch will be able to make. Let me do the next slide. And here's a very simple diagram of kind of our data flow. So starting on the left-hand side, any variety of credential coming into a data storage, whether it's AHES, which is our Arkansas Department of Higher Ed, through eSchool, which is K-12, or other systems. These come into the State Data Hub, and then we work with Credential Engine with their extra tool to scrape any documents data that's coming in, create bulk uploads, and convert all of this data into CTDL. And then it's that CTDL, it's the repository of the credential registry that Launch draws from, and that speaks to other platforms as well, that allows us to make the connections that make Launch so powerful.
And from an interoperability standpoint, that's an extra step. We could have very easily taken it from those source systems and put it straight into Launch, and we would have built a bigger silo. But we use CTDL data that we didn't publish. We're now offering Grow of Google certificates for free, and that stuff's already there. We have a good number of WGU completers in Arkansas. They're records that are valuable to Arkansans that are not published by Arkansas. Similarly, by having the registry, that's extremely valuable data, and at being linked open data and credentials as human and machine readable. Platform A, platform B, we might not develop that. We want to make sure it's there, and we're facilitating that stewardship for Launch or any other platform. And we do the same thing with jobs and anything else.
Mm-hmm. As we build out on the backside too with Launch for Providers, CTDL will allow us to align with different standard body professional standards, accreditation agencies, with different frameworks from across the educational ecosystem to facilitate reporting and make sure that learning outcomes are aligned, that from a provider standpoint, it can help with real-time data to improve services and curriculum.
And Launch for Providers is a bit of a sneak peek, but that'll make that arrow bi-directional.
Yes. All right. So Robert's mantra to me all the time is, as we're launching Launch, think about what's the largest impact that we can make with the smallest effort. So with that, if you'll go to the next slide, I have a list of our primary publishing projects. The idea here is that these are large buckets that will allow us, as we pull these into the Launch ecosystem, allow us to reach the greatest number of individuals. And so you can see at the very top, we have the public schools, pre-K through 12, secondary CTE, ETPL list. That's your training providers, WIOA eligible training provider list, military, apprenticeship, public higher education, and even labor and licensing. We work a lot with Goodwill Industries of Arkansas and the Arkansas Correctional School District because they have fairly stable curricula right now, and they already have competency frameworks associated with their credentials. And so they're really good for us as we're experimenting with data down to the skills level. I also have a long list, and it's always growing, of what we call edge cases. They might have particular barrier or opportunity populations that we do not want to forget about, but they're not as large, and we will get to them eventually. All right, and now Robert's going to give us a very quick tour.
And for those who want to just see a little bit of, well, what does Launch look like, which anybody can go into Launch for Job Seekers if you want to play around. Not everyone can go into Launch for employers or students, so I can show some of that too. Launch for Job Seekers, hopefully that's intuitive enough. It's the version of Launch for Job Seekers. We want is someone to come in on any device and quickly know that's the button for what I'm doing right now. We're part of interoperability. We're using login.gov for authentication. We didn't want to have one more password. That's what IRS is moving to, and all federal services. We've largely seen kind of in our early testing that most people that we're dealing with, they've already got a login.gov account. And we're speaking about like LARs and things like that. It's not just a credential, it's also the identity. We want consistent identity. So the fact that that's getting such national use to the federal level. We think that's a big head start in kind of having like a nationally interoperable identity. There's also in-person service through any USPS location. We're the pilot for that. So for buried populations, things like that, it's just taking a lot of like the friction out of the experience. The core of launch is someone's skills and experience profile. To us, experience, it can be far reaching. It's really that sort of opening the aperture of skill attainment and articulation. It's like a bucket of skills, and it can be a 2-year, 4-year post-secondary. It can be a secondary diploma, of which we now have several different flavors with different distinction options. It could be a registered apprenticeship. It can be employment. It can be military employment. It could be a non-credit. It could be a volunteer experience. All of these, we're looking at as a context, but we sort of reframed Launch, which is built on the Ripple Doors platform that's used in a number of different states, to be really focused on the skills, because that's our common currency that connects between the programs, the jobs, the job seekers. So it's really about helping the individual quickly like build out that skills and experience profile, because that's what drives the recommendations and everything else. We've got a resume creator in there. That was something that they asked for a lot, because for several of our populations, particularly with WIOA or with corrections, it was just seen as a very helpful thing. But I think it also it helps encourage really filling out that skills experience profile, because it really, you can tell that the resume doesn't have everything, and it's kind of building out a skills-based resume. Career exploration, they can go in any order, but this is the sort of natural order it takes it through if they don't like choose their own adventure. First thing it does is based off of their skills. It's a recommendation engine. It works very much like Netflix. They can look at any career they want, but kind of like Netflix, where you can watch any movie you want. But as you do things, it's cutting to the noise. It's trying to save you time. It's showing you things that might be of interest, but you can say, I like that, I don't like that, whatever. It learns the more you use it. Launches the same way. It has a recommendation engine in the background. There's a skills match right there. So there's an algorithm that's looking at those vectors of skills adjacencies. There's a little bit of extra stuff in there to just put guardrails against, like recommending something that would have a much lower wage or low demand or some things like that. But it's largely a skills match. But someone can have a really high skills match, but just not like it. So there's the little thumbs up through the ellipses. There's also essentially the equivalent of thumbs down. They can indicate their preferences too. So it's a combination of skills and preferences. There's a number of filters, because maybe they will look at something in a certain wage, certain geographic location, something similar to what they do, something very different than what they do. There are videos there. We started out with the Own It videos, but we've had a film crew on the ground for about 2 years now, I think, and that will be for a while more, just constantly filming videos with Arkansas employers. So increasingly like swapping these out for videos that are featuring Arkansas companies, Arkansas jobs, and that are kind of tailored to have more of a skills-based messaging about some of the different ways that you can get in those careers using a variety of skills-based pathways. Once someone selects careers and things like that, it's using those skills, it's using those preferences to surface jobs. We're increasingly thinking about this as opportunities, because it could be a work-based learning opportunity, it could be a volunteer service opportunity, it could be lots of things. Those are actually in here now. We already do have internships and apprenticeships, but that's kind of, we're broadening it out to thinking of it as it's a connection with opportunities. It's a marketplace. Here they can go look at the job posting. Again, lots of filters, things like that. They can look at any job they want. Right now it says 922 jobs. This profile's personalized job board on that day. If they do filter and sort, they can turn off the recommended and look at all of the jobs. These are all coming from the National Labor Exchange. So we push everything out there, because just like with CTDL, there are things that get published in National Labor Exchange that don't come from us. And we want to publish jobs out that can be used for places other than just launch. So that, again, it's like big on interoperability and having that abstraction layer, because we're building reusable interoperable components as part of an ecosystem. You know, we're trying, as we're working to break down silos, we do not want to build a new one. Very similar as its card layout. We try to keep a familiar paradigm, and we're increasingly putting those little videos in. We're working towards being able to have employers have more of a profile with their videos, and hopefully having more training opportunity videos. So this will, you know, increasingly look just like their career exploration. So once someone knows how to use one screen, they know how to use them all. We want to be, our chief workforce officer says 6-click simple. When we look at the click stream analytics right now, it's like 6.7 clicks on average. So I guess we have to like get like 0.7 clicks off to get to a job opening. But so this is where this is all coming from the credential registry. That's the only way to get data in here. It has to be in the registry. So we had a big event in February. People from across the state and the country of Governor Sanders really announcing launch. And after that, there was a lot of interest from different providers. Was like, how do I get my program on launch? And the answer is, you've got to get it in the credential registry. So that's helping to drive credential registry publishing. And I think there's a first mover advantage here to doing that deep publishing, because it's going to connect. And we're already hearing from programs who have gotten enrollments because people found their program through launch. So it sort of gamifies it as like, yeah, you'll get the information out there. We also see employers, this happens a lot with as they're trying to upskill, reskill for AI now, say, where are the programs in this? Or when some of the big grants come out, and they're trying to, you know, set things up, and they're looking for certain types of programs. And so that's really helpful to have all of that published out there in the registry, but then also have a really easy way to look through that. This is a little bit peripheral to our conversation, but they can also do work search or interaction reporting here. Right now we're doing it for unemployment insurance, because if they're already doing that, you know, that cuts through the friction. It helps them, you know, because the requirements change all the time. It very easy to see, like, what's my requirement? Am I doing it? If they've already clicked on the jobs, it's done. This is previously a manual process on, but you know, with mail going back between the state and employers and residents. And so that's cut a lot of friction out, saves a lot of time, saves a lot of money, just makes it easier for everyone. I think this will be increasingly important with some of the new work requirements that we have coming up in the next year or so. Employers is the other side. It's not as extensive at the moment as job seekers, because it's one of the newer ones, and essentially it's posting a job. So they put in job title, they put in job description, it parses it out into skills. The employer can then kind of adjust it a little bit to make sure it matches what they have in mind. They can put in experience. They can articulate preferred skills and skills you are willing to teach, you know, to again, like, make it clear to job seekers that, so you're not thinking, well, I don't have this skill, that's going to be a blocker, or I'm not going to apply. Like, we want that distinction. And also there's some stuff down there about how to connect with programs that, you know, a registered apprenticeship or something that can help with that. This is also a way to let employers know about work opportunity tax credit or other types of things that can be beneficial to employers that they might not know about. If they just stop there, they have put their job out on National Labor Exchange. It is now available on Launch for Job Seekers, so job seekers can come and find them. And they put the URL in for their applicant tracking system, so it's driving traffic to their job posting. Also, anything else that uses the National Labor Exchange, that job posting is going to work for them. But there's a different piece to it. As soon as they put these jobs in, they can create multiple, and they have like a hiring team. They can review candidate matches And some of the HR staff who's come to training on this have said that it's like going from playing defense to playing offense. They can put the job posting out, people can still come and find them, but they can also go and look proactively for talent. And so we've got the marketplace in here. It's there's no name, there's no photo, there's no demographics. So it's anonymous. They're really just focused on what candidates that are in the system that are, open to opportunities, meet the skills of that job posting. Our chief workforce officer says he wanted his original vision for this was Match.com meets Indeed because he wants to make a love connection between employers and job seekers. So it's very much kind of like a dating profile based on skills. And so there's a separate recommendation engine there working on that matching. And then it's kind of a skills based profile of a candidate. If they see candidates they like, and they could flag multiples, they can send an invitation email. They don't see the job seeker name as a placeholder. It's keeping the job seeker anonymous. It lets the job seeker decide whether or not to take the next step and disclose. And they can customize a template and send that. They can just do one, or sometimes we'll see, well, I have 3 roles, but I need to hire 175 people for those 3 roles. So they can batch up and send a whole bunch out. The job seeker will then get it via email, but also in the notifications over on the job seeker side. So we're kind of facilitating that marketplace. And especially as we have all high school students in launch, we have all unemployment insurance claimants, increasingly have it's built into our plans for SNAP employment training, Medicaid. We'll have many Arkansans in there. So we have a lot of employers, they want to hire locally. So this is giving away to connect with local talent based on skills. Launch for Students is our newest. We haven't talked about this much publicly. I think this is the first we've told anyone about it because it's in pilot right now out there. The school districts are super excited about it. We're in the first of 3 years. This is really kind of a sneak peek at like the way that the launch ecosystem's going, which is kind of moving into a longer sort of like GPS of like, where am I at? Where do I want to go? What are the pathways to get there? It starts right off the bat with an interest profile because a 7th grader maybe not have a skills and experience profile. They have interest and aptitude. So we're working with the interest. And of course, we're using the Holland or RISEC codes because for interoperability, that seems to be like used most places. It helps them. They go through and they take their test and they can retake it multiple times. They kind of understand their interest through RISEC. And this looks very familiar to launch for job seekers, the career cards. This is for career exploration, early career exploration. There's not a skills match. There's an interest match. So we got the algorithm there that's doing those matches based off of the RISEC codes. And this will then ultimately make it across the rest of the ecosystem so someone can look at skills, interest, and/or aptitude match. It's got some additional identifiers there, like high skill, high wage, high demand, because for career technical education, there's the H3 indicators that are important for the success plans. Same, videos, common skills, some labor market information that's specific to their geography. They do still have the ability to like or dislike any number of careers. One of the big differences is that select. The students select up to 3 different careers because what they're really doing is setting that goal. It's that GPS paradigm. We're kind of laying out where they're at now. And they're saying a long-term, maybe I'm in 7th grade and I say, I want to be a doctor. And it's multiple steps to get there. So then they get into a pathway explorer where it's exploring in Arkansas Learns, it's called the 3 E's: enrollment, enlistment, employment, the different stackable pathways, be it post-secondary credentials, military enlistment, employment, and experiential learning, registered apprenticeship, things like that, to get to their destination. And they redo this each year, or any time during the year, but they're required to redo it at least once each year. And their student and the student has access, the parent or guardian has access, and their career coach, counselor, advisor has access. They all sign off on it. So they're all going through the journey together each year. Once they do that, they're drilling down into, particularly in secondary education, they're doing their course planning. So based off of, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to be a doctor. I'm going to do this in post-secondary. Well, to prepare for that, this is the distinction option I want, or maybe this is a CTE pathway. And then, that narrowing down to what are the skills I need to take in 12th grade, 11th grade, 10th grade, 9th grade. So it's just helping them, open that aperture to the whole wide world of work. And then work their way back to those decisions that they need to make even back in middle school. The new LEARNS legislation, which is our Education Reform Act in primary and secondary education, requires every 9th to 12th grader to complete a number of community or volunteer service and experiential learning activities. So very similar to the work search activities over in Launch for Job Seekers. Same type of thing here, but this also lets us start building towards, and we'll put this in CTDL, of course, if someone has a community service activity, yes, that's a requirement for, graduation or certain distinction options of graduation, but it's also an opportunity to demonstrate skill attainment.
And another feature that does not touch on CTDL here that I love about the experiential learning logs, it forces a reflection from the student, but also they list who they met with and their contact information. So it's helping them to build out a social network. And when it comes time for job recommendation letters or post-secondary recommendation letters, they've got people whom they can contact.
The next step we're really working out right now has their assessment scores. We started with interest because Holland and RISAC are pretty common as far as interest, and there's a lot of work already done on mapping RISAC scores to occupations. But the next step is when we really get to aptitude. There's work keys, there's ALS, there's lots of different ones. So we kind of started with interest because it's a little bit easier. We can get there faster. And now this year doing a lot of work on aptitude. And the goal of this is they're as we're going through this process out there, they're building out a success plan. So they're kind of constantly doing this self-reflection, doing this pathway planning and then pathway navigation. And then this year we had some additional legislation for higher education reform. And so our hope is that we can kind of continue to build this out so that after they finish post-secondary, perhaps they can continue doing the same type of activity and throughout post-secondary activities. This is sort of peripheral, but wraparounds are important. One last little step in here is then they can use, it's integrated with something called Civiform, which is totally open source. Anyone on this call can take it and use it for their jurisdiction for any device discovery and connection to those wraparound services and programs. And we're super excited that it was just named one of Time Magazine's 100 Best Inventions of 2025. And you can use it for free. So
finally, going back to the personas with which Launch was designed, here's Maya. She was upset in a slide at the beginning before she went through Launch. And here, Launch has solved for her many of her problems. So she can use Launch as a common place to upload her military skills and credentials, as well as education, connect her to additional upskilling for future employment and also educational opportunities. In the future, as we plug in those wraparound services with Civiform, making connections to GI benefits liaison, scholarships, assisting with admissions platforms. So lots of different possibilities here as we envision Launch out. And then ultimately she's able to launch her career in cybersecurity and is recruited through Launch by an Arkansas employer. So she's happy.
And we're happy.
And we're happy. And I think my favorite thing about Launch is not only all the services that it can provide through skills data, but the connections that it makes, because ultimately through this digital platform, we're bringing people together from across Arkansas to solve problems and across the country. So on the right-hand side, just through Maya's story, you can see a number of Arkansas community-based organizations, public agencies, and different buckets of providers, personas who have been brought together through this platform. So really enabling relationships, which we care about a lot in Arkansas.
So that was a lot, but such is the world that we're helping people navigate. And that leaves us over at 10 minutes. And I see that there are at least maybe 7 questions, comments, etc. So we can just take them in order.
We want to stop sharing our screen or leave that up?
We can stop
Great.
sharing our screen. And I don't know if Jillian, if you want to pick out questions.
Yeah, I know there's one in here with the references tool you're offering. Do you foresee the ability for users to get reference letters issued as verifiable credentials or as evidence baked into verified credentials that could then be pulled into their profiles or resumes?
We haven't thought a whole lot about that, but that's amazing. And that's why we love to share and learn from others, because now we're thinking about it and Aaron's writing it now. And, we are looking, that's probably linked at like linked claims as part of that spectrum from self-attested to like fully verified, as different levels of proficiency, different levels of veracity. But I love that idea.
I do too. I do too. And I can definitely see how that can be used.
And we did have a question from Kate. It was, so the credential registry affords you credential definitions that you didn't publish but want to offer to your learners. You mentioned a little bit about this, Robert, connecting to maybe an industry recognized credential. Could you elaborate on that just a little bit more?
And
Hang on, we're looking for that question.
yeah, I was looking for a
It's
little.
just a host and panelists. So hopefully you could see that.
Between skills and validated skills. Is that the question?
No, I think it,
Looking at the questions while you were talking.
and I think I can answer this one. It's just that, yes, you are able to connect to information that you didn't publish yourself, and that we heard that Robert mentioned that during the presentation.
That is correct. So like we didn't publish out like the CTDL for like Grow of Google, but and now to a partnership with Google, the state's offering that to a number of our learners, but others could have gotten it. There's lots of like national things. But we have what goes into launch isn't the full breadth of the credential registry. That'd be overwhelming. We just set up a collection for the credentials that we know are offered in Arkansas. And so sometimes it's already out there. It's as simple as we just need to make sure that it's added to the collection.
There's a question by I think it's the same participant, about skills versus validated skills. We are partnered with the Competency-Based Education Network right now and their Center for Skills, really exploring performance-based assessments and skills verification, and envision at some point having a way to make sure that we're verified down to the skills level. So actively figuring that out right now. And that's a great question, because there is a big difference as we're building out these comprehensive learning records between validated skills and credentials and self-attested.
And I see the next one, it looks like after graduation, will the student have access to Launch for Students, or will they have an option
Yes.
to download?
Absolutely. And that was one of the key things that the Arkansas Department of Education wanted to look at, because we have, it's 284 school districts, unless we've had some charters since the last looked. And every school district had their own system. So if a student moved between districts, sometimes between grades of the same district, they were on a different system, a different success plan. And it certainly didn't go with them past graduation. The whole idea here is that, that it should be bound to the learner, not to the program or institution or whatever. It's really about, like making it from data about them to data for them. So it's enabling that data mobility where we want them to, get use of it in primary and secondary education, but continue taking it with them and benefiting from it in their learning and work journey.
Awesome. And I think there's one. Oh, sorry, Erin. There's one more in the chat, unless I missed any, if anyone wants to point that out. And then we have a couple in the Q&A. So from Kristen, is there or will there be a shared skills framework that will be used?
I mean, that's really the holy grail, isn't it? Like it's the one thing that there's someone who magically nationally say like, here it is, everybody use this, because we have to make on all this educated guesses as to what's going to get the traction to build towards. But
we are looking at a number of different skills taxonomies and frameworks out there, like Cast Open Skills taxonomy is one of them. And a lot of conversations with our colleagues in Alabama. They're a little bit ahead of us, and now into from skills taxonomy. I saw that. Yeah. Hello, Nathan. From skills taxonomy to skills ontology, allowing for a lot deeper matrices of context and proficiency level and other data. So in the next few months, we'll have a better answer for that, but we will have a skills framework or more. And then of course it will be open, because launch is built on open and shareable linked data.
In the questions and answers, is one about what are you using for the recommendations algorithm? Is it trained or tailored to specific data sets? So which data sets? And this is it's part of the Doors platform from Ripple that's used also in New Jersey, Colorado, Rhode Island, and Hawaii, and maybe this one. We've adjusted it a little bit to be more like skill centric, but it's an ecosystem. It's Python running, and it's all like cloud microservices. A key thing about Doors is it's not just kind of based on national data, like it really leverages the site's longitudinal data so that the recommendations can be informed by what's going on in the state's local labor market. So and a lot of that was through our unemployment wage records, our quarterly census wages, and our employment insurance claims and things like that, to other job postings, things like that, to see what were the earnings we were really seeing in Arkansas, what were the successful transitions between occupations, programs, things like that. So really, I think for anyone that has a longitudinal data, that was what really attracted to the Doors platform, is the ability to really kind of take the longitudinal data system, which is fabulous for evidence-based policy and practice and things like that, but giving an individual utility through the SLDS so that every Arkansans then can have their personalized view powered by the SLDS. Julie had a question about, you mentioned login.gov. Were there other privacy concerns and considerations you've addressed? If it's about login.gov, and actually login.gov was created, it's a federal service by the GSA in response to some privacy issues from a commercial provider. So it was very much a reaction to that, and they're very cautious there. And we did a lot of testing with the pilot state with login.gov for unemployment insurance and in-person proofing and things like that. But there are also kind of other privacy concerns or considerations with launch where we think a lot through the statement. But it's self-sovereignty. We're doing our part to equip a learner with data, at least the data that the state has purview over or accountability of, serving the resident. They can use it to its fullest, they can ignore it, or anything in between. It's their choice, self-sovereignty.
Great. And I think there was just one more that Noah put in the chat just to clarify. So I think that's our last question. If you guys can see that one, or I can read it out loud. You envision supporting both validated and self-attested assertions, just signaling to consumers so they have transparency about that.
Yes. And we will have a way to signal that. We have not yet issued or accepted. We don't have our wallet yet to issue or accept verified credentials. So when we do, what we've seen in other ecosystems are like a check mark or something to show that it's verified in-house.
Yeah, the data model is currently already set up so that right at the skill level under the experience that can be verified. Because it could be, oh, well, it's fully verified from the provider that yeah, it verifies the holder has these 10 skills. But the learner might say, well, I'm also self-attesting 2 skills on top of that because I did the course. So it's at the skill level, and then Launch for Employers is already set up to leverage the flags based on which of these skills are self-attested versus verified. It is set up to work with 2 different wallets. We've got those hidden right now. We did some early work before, but we're really focused on user experience. At some user populations are still LERs yet. Some of them, the idea of like, oh, I got to scan the QR code and I got to download the app, and that was friction. And so that's where we're like, well, we want to keep it 6-click simple. And so now we're really working to really build it very naturally into the flow. So we're kind of rethinking to make it just, I mean, like in our daily lives, like things just happen and you don't have to like break your flow and go do something else.
Great. And I have to say, I love that 6 clicks. I hadn't heard that before. So that's really good. I'm going to take that back and use it. And I think that's it, other than just the folks saying thank you and loved your water bottle. So thank you, Erin. Thank you, Robert. We really appreciate you. And thanks for taking the time to go through this. This was a fantastic presentation. So
Thanks.
thank you, everyone else, for joining. We will have this recording and we'll send a follow-up email with all of the details. So thank you, everyone, and have a fantastic rest of your day.
Thank you, wonderful
Super.
Skills
Thank you,
family.
everybody. Yes. Bye-bye.